We're at the Pre-Zero Arena, which of course is absolutely empty, bar for 322 people. The players, the substitutes, various officials and delegates of the two teams. The supporters will have to watch from home from now until further notice.
There he is, Ian Darke, back to work as the Bundesliga returns, calling Hoffenheim Hertha Berlin from the comforts of home. Ian, what was that like?
It was very strange and not a little bit scary. I put it roughly like trying to climb Mt Everest in plimsolls. It felt like that. I mean, Craig will know, we've all commentated, you too, Seb, off television pictures. Sometimes we have to do that in the industry, but never from home before. So I had enough wires and electrical equipment, I think, to launch a rocket. Brought round to my house. It was all lashed together. But the one thing is, at the end of it, you're still dependent on being able to identify the players off a television picture, and not particularly good television picture, because it comes through your broadband at home. And sometimes, just sometimes in the second half, the picture actually froze. So I had a shot of Robert Skov taking a corner for Hoffenheim, and then for 20 seconds, absolutely nothing, just him, frozen picture. Next thing I saw was the goalkeeper with the ball in his hand. So you'll understand it was quite weird with that strange sound of silence behind it the whole way. I'd have to say it was among the more difficult games I've ever had to do.
Ian, you are quickly becoming the king of viral videos during this pandemic. Are you surprised at how popular this video has gotten?
Well, I'm not sure about all of that. Yeah, I am a bit surprised, really, but I think people are pretty bored at the moment with nothing to do. So I just thought I'd put it out there on Twitter to give people a little sense of the kind of problems we were facing, and maybe a little bit of an insight too as sort of big-time football returns. So, yeah, I was surprised. I did have a kind of a method in my madness, because I was trying to show people that if it wasn't up to the usual standard, this was why, and this is how we were having to do it.
Speaking of not up to the usual standard, you're having to work from home. I'm sure that's some challenges. You find any horror stories between you or your colleagues of what it's like to try and call a match from your living room?
Well, I had the picture freezing, as I told you about, but the interesting one was Paul Demspey, who Craig will know, who normally does the Bundesliga. So he's doing the Dortmund Schalke derby game, sitting at home in his office. There's a guy banging on the door trying to make deliveries from the supermarket and not understanding why Paul isn't coming to answer the door. He didn't know or even care, I think, that Erling Haaland was about to score a goal again for Dortmund. But it's a farcical scene and probably the basis for a very good comedy sketch.
Ian, there's been a lot of talk about the lack of crowd noise. As someone who has called games in the United States, and I can say this too, working with an empty stadium is not something that I'm unaccustomed to. But for you, do you feel you need crowd noise to make a good football broadcast?
If you'd asked me before doing that game, should there be artificial sound effects put on the backing track, so to speak, I'd have said definitely not. It's too artificial. Having seen it all weekend, the other games I wasn't commentating on, I just watched on television on the Bundesliga. Yeah, it feels all the time like it's a reserve game. You can hear the players shouting. There's no crowd, and it just feels like a reserve match. So I'd like to see it tried. I think in Germany, they do give you the option on the host broadcaster there. You can turn to a channel with crowd effects in the background. Of course, it has to be done in a sophisticated way, I think, to work. But I'd like to try it. I think it might make a difference, yeah.
Craig, what do you think? Pumped in crowd noise?
Just one quick story. And these guys did a great job, by the way, the commentators, all these guys who adapted and worked from home, and the technical people. It's even for an old pro like Mr. Darke. I mean, it's not easy. It's not as easy as people would think. But I'm not going to give names, but I know of a commentator once in England who had to work from home because he had no other option on this particular occasion, and he was doing a match. But unfortunately, his bloody dog wouldn't stop barking in the background. And he actually had to say, because he couldn't get out his chair and go and usher the dog, he had to say, "Oh, it seems like we've got some police dogs on the side of the field at the moment." So he was like, "It's one of those things. You just never know. You just never know what's going to happen." To go back to the crowd noise things, when we sit in gantries doing commentaries, if Ian and I are sat in the Premier League and we're at a game and we're at a ground and we're doing a game, we've got our earphones in, we're hearing the director, we're hearing all sorts of different things. But one of the most important things for a commentator and a co-commentator is having the effects of the crowd at a good level in your ears, because it's very difficult to do the commentary without that effects of the crowd in your ears. And it's kind of the same when you're watching the game. It's missing that little bit. And if it takes them trying that for a little bit just to take the edge off it, then I'm all for it, because it's eerie watching a game between two excellent sides with no crowd there and no crowd noise. And if they can try something, why not?
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.